This coronation crown was very difficult to make because of its size and intricacy and so on. It was for Fluorescence, which is a major Garden Club of America show in Houston every other year. It's put on by the Garden Club of Houston, River Oaks Garden Club, and the Museum of Fine Arts through the GCA members. I chose to go to class 1 in botanical arts for botanical jewelry. It was to create a crown fit for a queen, and it was called Coronation. So one of the things I do like about botanical arts is when we get the schedule, which is what we're told we need to make for a show, I love to do the research. So I looked up about coronation crowns, and of course I thought it was very apropos because of the king being coronated on Saturday, the weekend after this show, a couple weekends after. So first I learned about coronation crowns. It's meant to be a queen's crown. So the queen's crown is also referred to as the royal crown, is made with depressed arches, and the king's crown is also called the imperial crown, and on the other hand, the arches that rise to the center. So it's a little bit different in shape. So when you look at a picture, you can kind of see these arches that come down and sort of depress in the middle. And of course, if you look at Queen Elizabeth's crown, which was embellished from all these gifts across the world with gems, you can see what they're talking about. The arches come up and around the velvet and kind of depress in the middle. So I thought the most challenging part for this was, what can I use that could be strong enough to maintain the shape I want, yet flexible enough to be able to be brought down in the middle? So I start with banana bark. It comes in this roll like this, and it's very interesting to work with because it's 2 layers, if you will. There's 2 different pieces of the bark, and the middle has this membrane that's meant to hold water because it's in an area normally grows without too much water. So the membrane in the middle, when you open up, you have to pull these 2 pieces apart. Then I take tweezers and pull as much of this membrane off while it's wet. You have to wet it first, and then it becomes very flat and easy to use. So I took a piece of cardboard, which we're allowed to use as long as it's covered with plant material, and I put it in the middle of the banana bark and wrapped it so both sides of the cardboard were banana bark. Here it is drying on a round cake pan that was the perfect diameter, and I put this around to dry. And I put not only the crown's circumference but the arches. So here we have the arches that I put in there. They were half circles, if you will. And in order to get this depressed area, I put a hole in the middle of these 2 arches and took a skewer and pulled it down with duct tape, so that when I get this to dry fully, it will dry in the shape that I want. And while it's drying, I coat it with a little bit of epoxy so that it will maintain that shape. So I went on, I measured the middle there, and I knew I needed to make something that represented the velvet that goes in the middle of this section, which I used corn husks. You want to make sure and hydrate your corn husks before you use them to make them more pliable. So you just need to soak them in warm water for a few minutes. And here's a video of what I did. I started with a little paper mache circle, and then I brought it these corn husks. I found that when I go to the grocery store and buy corn, that the husks weren't long enough. They were very short. So I bought corn husks that were meant for making tamales on Amazon, and I put a rubber band at the base and just sort of, as you can see, just kept applying them till I got the shape I wanted. And it wasn't as puffy as I thought it should be, so I remember putting a little bit more paper in the middle and so on, so that it would be nice and full and dry that way. So the piece at the top I left because I wanted to draw that up into the circle of the arches on the crown part so that it would stay. And then I painted it green, and then I actually ground up some sage and brushed it on there and was able to give it a look of velvet. So while that was drying, I went back to the arches here, and when I went to epoxy this, although I put packing tape on the cake pan, which epoxy generally doesn't stick to, it got very tight and it stuck to the pan. So just a little hint on how to get this off. I fed some fishing line through the area that was stuck, and just it's almost like dental floss, go back and forth and get it unstuck from the cake pan. And eventually it came off. I was very happy. I wasn't quite sure I knew what I was going to do to get it off there. So I put that aside and I went back to, now I have to decorate the crown. And I needed something curved because I wanted it to go with the shape of the crown. So I got this barrel gourd from Etsy. You can order these online. And I cut it out with a jeweler's saw and created this cross that a lot of crowns have, as well as the fleur-de-lis, and just started decorating them after they were cut out. And here they are with some of the plant material on them. And I also used a lot of gems in this. I use mushrooms for my gems quite often, and this is just a real quick, you can find other videos that show you exactly how I do this, but I sand it down to a particular depth, then I seal it with crazy glue or Gorilla Glue or something and let that dry overnight, because if you don't seal a mushroom after you've cut it, when you go to spray paint it, it will absorb the moisture from the spray paint and just puff out, and you'll lose your shape. When you're sanding these, this is what I look like, very glamorous here. So make sure you cover your mouth and your eyes and such and go outside to do that. And then once they're cut, they're all in little pieces. I decorated those with eucalyptus and whatnot to make these little gems to go all around the crown. The top of the crown, I knew it needed to be a cross with a circle, because one of the things I did learn in my research is that when it came to the crowns in England, which is what I was trying to represent because I thought that was apropos, I noticed that they all had crosses over a round ball. It's meant to look like the Church of England over the world, is what I've read in some of the articles. So it was kind of interesting to learn that. I went and got a cross picture off the internet and downloaded it and put it on the mushroom, cut it out in that shape, and decorated it with plant material. For the round object on the top that's meant to be the world, I used another smaller gourd, I think it was an egg gourd, and I cut the hole in it so that the cross would then fit into it very securely. I also wanted to make these arches that go around the crown, so I went back to the banana bark and created the scalloped look to complete the crown. So here it is kind of being put together. I put some of the plant material on the crown already, and I wanted to point out, see, these particular tweezers are pressure tweezers. They're from the third hand that you can buy. And you hold these pieces in place so that they can dry it's almost like a clamp, but they're a little more gentle than a clamp. So they're better for this, what we do, so you don't crush the material. I took these fox nuts and glued them onto the crown just for texture and more ornamentation. So as you can see, this is it all being glued together. And I made a lot of pearls for this. So first, with the pearls, I drill a hole in soybeans, and as messy as this looks, it's just white glue, and you just put a tip of a skewer in the white glue and glue the soybeans right onto it and let them dry. And then I put them on a piece of styrofoam that I repurposed for this, and let them dry, and then I spray them with a primer. Now, the primer will kind of dictate the color of the pearls. Some pearls lend themselves more toward blue or gray and some toward pink. So depending on what you want, you choose the correct primer. I suppose if you did white, you wouldn't get much of an undercolor at all. And what I do is I tend to keep them on their skewers, and it's much easier to paint. So you can take them and you paint and just turn the pearl by turning the skewer, and it gives a nice even coat. And I put several coats on these just because I wanted a real luster to the pearls. So the hardest part about this crown, and one that took a lot of wine and patience, was gluing the milkweed fuzzies onto a piece of cardboard. I found that cardboard received the glue best, and it was still flexible to be able to make it and put it back on the crown. So basically, I harvested a bunch of these pods in the fall and kept them in a paper bag sealed, and then when I took them out, I just with tweezers put one piece and another piece, then another piece, and it took a whole day to do this, at least one day, and a lot of, as I said, patience. And it really was fun. A lot of people enjoyed seeing this. Look, they kept saying, I didn't think we were allowed to use fur. And I said, well, it's not. But together, it really did look like fur. So here we are back to the crown being put all together with all the pearls and foxnuts. I needed another section that was below the crown that I could then glue the milkweed fur onto. So I added another part to the base here, as you can see, plain. This is a ball with the cross on top, finished with different plant material on there. And here it is all together. When you glue it back all together, it was in a museum case, so it really looked like it was in the right spot in a museum. And I don't want to say I enjoyed making this because it was a little frustrating at parts, but I really enjoyed learning some new things to do. Got second place. They didn't like my gold paint. Apparently it was not as clean as it could be. And I see what they mean. I understand what they mean. I think when you have a large piece like this, you might want to use matte paint and it might look a little bit better. But in either case, I don't think that would have helped. I think the person who won, here it is, had such a pretty and charming crown. And here it is with this butterfly on the top. I thought that was pretty. And basically, this woman, Belle Morgan from Magnolia Garden Club, won not only first place in our class, but also a certificate of excellence from the Botanical Arts Division. And also the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston awarded them a Botanical Arts Award. So it was just really charming. Everybody seemed to really love it. And look at that color. I loved the color. Well, I hope you'd enjoy this, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you.